Up early, late night, before the sun rises. Hot tea, candlelight, no electronic devices. It's quiet now. While the world sleeps, I'm awake. Take time to contemplate and give thanks and pump the bass. Self-aware, self-care, taking care of self.
All right, welcome to the Hip Hop African podcast. Today we are sitting and talking with MC Jahi, who is a hip hop artist, hip hop educator, originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Sure. And so he kind of really got started in terms of his public career as an MC back in '99, where he opened for Public Enemy at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And since then, he's been writing, producing music, and teaching at, the college level, different schools, community, grassroots organizations. And so it's really kind of the quintessential hip hop educator. And so, met him through many, many sources. It feels like there are like several points of connection. And it's weird. We literally went to like the same school at different times and knew the same people. Fast forward, and then like there are all these other kind of professional connections and stuff. And so I think it was just going to be a matter of time before we eventually connected. Yeah. And so, wanted to meet you and talk to you after hearing about your work and hearing about, the stuff that you've been into. And so thank you for agreeing to sit down and talk.
All good, all good. And I have to say, this is like, I'm gonna plug you for a second. This book right here, I picked up in Ghana, changed my life. It was a proof point. And I was like, I gotta find out who is this person right here. So it was my mission to get this started. And to find out you from Cleveland was just incredible. That's just another like serendipitous ancestral connection. But again, I just really want to salute you on this incredible body of work. It is really, it's such a proof point, not just for myself, but for a lot of us that realize that there's an interconnectedness to what we do in the African continent. So, I mean, and for you to put this work out now, I just think is incredibly important. I still, you got to just take it humbly, but take it big. I just say it's the best book on hip hop right now that's happening in the world, because it will lift up how much you don't know and will remind you how we are a global culture. This really answers it. It's not like no more theory, no more, hip hop's all around the world. You put names and faces and styles to it. So just want to big you up on that first. So. Thank you.
No, it's definitely, again, that connection, because a lot of the work that had been already kind of put out there by, Chuck D, Public Enemy, and things that he had said about hip hop in Africa. And it's kind of like, I think I quote him a few times in the book, and it was kind of like, so again, the connections and, really hip hop minds, like certain woke hip hop minds, I guess, think alike. And so, you meet folks that are literally on the same wavelength. And it's just like, there's a lot of things that don't even have to be said. And
No, real talk. Chuck has been really instrumental about making sure that we get global. And we understand that hip hop is global. I remember 2002, 2003, my career had started. I put out my first album. I had 2 albums out and I was working on my third. And Chuck was just like, you know what? You need to get overseas. It's like, what you're doing here is good, but nobody's really going to hear you. He was like, you got to get over to the European, territories, because they're much more of a buying public of the style of hip hop that you present. You can perform live, there's an understanding, and there's been some work that's been done already there. I remember seeing Black Thought of the Roots before I got to Europe, my first trip, and I was like, where should I go? He was just like, well, if you make it over there, then I'll tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it was like this kind of rites of passage for folks. But Chuck was instrumental in really saying that, in order for us to truly be global, we have to get global. We can't just talk about a global perspective and not being able to see it. So, I moved to Europe. I lived in Europe for a particular time and got a deal based on that advice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you, so kind of reminding back how did, because you talk about your career kind of 99 being a turning point, but there's no way any random MC is going to be able to get on stage and open for Public Enemy. So it's like, it's like, okay.
Nah.
So how did you get to that point? Like, what was going on in terms of what led you there? And then how did that turn into you then kind of becoming a member of Public Enemy?
That's a good question. I always give East Cleveland a lot of props.
Mm-hmm.
14212 Savannah Avenue, East Cleveland. When I was a kid, from 12 to 16, I lived in East Cleveland where there were cabaret DJs who lived on my block. Bubba T, we had, Club Style. I mean, you from Cleveland, so if I start naming things, WDMT, Dean Dean, Machine, Lady Skills, Pratt and Tank, you know what I'm saying? Brothers for the Struggle early on. They all had an influence on me deciding to be an MC. It was like Beat Street came out and it was like, well, I ain't a breaker, so I'm not going to break. It's nice on the turntables. I always had a little graffiti pen, but MCing was my calling. So I always say that's anything that I was able to do is because I had those opportunities on those street corners to rap and battle and show and prove. Dow's Rapid Creation was in East Cleveland. Pick up music, you know what I mean? Like I had that access. So that's always my humble beginnings. But I'll fast forward. I was working inside of working for a nonprofit, doing some hip hop education around HIV and AIDS prevention in Cleveland. And the director of education was maybe 20 years my senior, and he pulled me in his office. He was like, "You're so great at what you're doing. 20 years from now, you can have this chair and you can, have this position," and was just trying to lift me up about, what impact I could make. And although I felt like I was being helpful, trying to like curb HIV and AIDS, particularly in heterosexual people who was just wilding out sexually, trying to give them some information. The following day, I was like, man, I don't want to be in that chair 20 years from now. I do not want to, I don't want that to be my life. So I started to interrogate myself and say, okay, what human skills do I have that I could put to use in another industry? Where hip hop was in, 97, 98 was as far away from my life as you could think. I was married at 22. I had 2 children. By the time I was 25, so I was a father, newly married, trying to navigate Cleveland, trying to navigate fatherhood and myself and everything. And, thank God for, Diggable Planets and Arrested Development and Gangstar and, groups like that add some sense of consciousness, because I had totally left hip hop. I was completely into reggae music. I was completely into roots reggae music in particular, because I lived in Jamaica for a time. But hip hop wasn't my soundtrack. Okay. I wasn't dancing and partying. I wasn't on that, to a large degree. But when I kind of checked and was like, wow, if I had to decide something else I could do, can I still rap? That was like, because I do think, in this day, the school that I'm from, you got to be good. You got to be original. If you're not good, get out the cipher. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, went to a studio in 98, a guy by the name of Jazz Mark, who I consider like the DJ premier of Cleveland, and did a demo tape and was like, I think I might have something. So, I was hitting up like open mics. I was hitting up the Fantasy in the West Side, the Grog Shop in Cleveland Heights, Agora in Cleveland. Like I was just hitting up spots. If a promoter let me get on, they let me do one song. And I try to turn that one song into a moment. And what I realized by 1999 is I had created a small buzz for myself that people were like, yo, Jahi can rhyme. And but what I did to distinguish myself it was like, everybody can rap, but can you rock live? That was where, because, in Cleveland, if you whack, they're going to tell you immediately. You're not even going to get it's like Apollo. So it was those kind of like nudges of, man, okay, they was giving me 2 minutes, but they heard about me rocking live, so I get 5 minutes. Okay. One day I hear on the radio, there's a contest at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, open to all genres, that hip hop was doing BET was involved, Kevin Powell was involved, and there was a hip hop exhibit that was happening at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And for the first time, they were going to open it up to the public to come perform, and the winner would get a chance to. It was Public Enemy, Outkast, Goody Mob. I want to say Nas was on that bill as well too. So I go down to the Rock Hall, and immediately when I got in line, I was like, I'm gonna do this, but I'm not going. I mean, it was like vocalists, singers, jugglers, choirs,
wow,
bands. Oh, it was, and I was just like, how the Apollo goes, the rapper never wins. So somebody sing Luther Vandross or something like that, they gonna. But long story short, here I am in the finals with another MC. I made it through. I literally rhymed every rhyme I had. To just because I didn't realize it was gonna be hours and hours. I thought it was just. But long story short, myself and another MC from Philly was in the finals, and he kept talking about Philly, and I was like, man, we could be here from morning to evening. He talking about Philly, but we in Cleveland.
Yeah,
that was all I needed to say, and got that slot. And the only reason why I met Public Enemy was because I was early. The day, I won the contest. They're like, okay, you open. It was November 10th, 1999. They told me what time sound check was, maybe 5 o'clock. I was there at 4, just because I had never done sound check. Nobody knew. They didn't know that they really got a local cat from East Cleveland about to rock this major stage that really has no experience other than these like little open mics and little touch points. And after my sound check, I went backstage, and the entire Public Enemy is back there. Everybody. Chuck, Flav, Griff, S1Ws, the whole camp is all back there. And Chuck turns around, he's like, yo, you the guy out there was working on the mic, you opening? And I was like, yeah. He was like, all right. He's like, all right, I'm gonna check out your set. I'm like, you gotta understand, I was the one who went to Dials Rapid Creation and got Yo Bum Rush the show and was playing it, and people were like, yo, this is noisy, what is this? Like, something in here with this Public Enemy. And It Takes a Nation. That was the album that got me through Euclid High School. And because what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That cultural consciousness saved me from what I was dealing with in Euclid at the time in 88, 89.
Yeah.
Man, just the level of, because again, I came from Shaw High School, all black, East Cleveland. So
you went from Shaw to Euclid?
I was at Shaw in 9th grade and 10th grade. My 11th grade year, I started at Euclid.
Ooh.
So just imagine, for those of you all listening, you just got to look at our expressions just to understand. The culture shock that I went through.
Yeah, Euclid was, we talking about racism and Euclid. Now I think Euclid the population is definitely more black folks in Euclid, but back then, white folks were not happy about all these black people moving into Euclid, and the fights between the black kids and the white kids, and then the teachers was. Okay, yeah.
My first class, I looked, I was like, this can't be my class. There ain't no black people in here. Like, I was on the wrestling team, so they was like, come on, N-word. So I was, the only way I could get them back was slamming them. Like, it wasn't until lunch where I saw the Maya Dawsons and Nikki's and everybody. Like, I was like, okay. I was like, we here.
Exactly.
So, again, going through that cultural shock, Public Enemy Nations really mattered. So again, fast forward, now here I am in a room meeting Chuck D and the whole crew for the first time. And he's like, I'm gonna check your set, and actually check my set.
Wow.
And I think I had 5 or 7 minutes. I don't even remember the songs I did. Oh man, 1999, I was talking about an opportunity of a lifetime. But out of that, Chuck was like, here's my contact, stay in touch. And I was like, okay. And that's exactly what happened for a matter of time. And I would say from 2000 to, well, there was a documentary film that I was shooting in 2001. And I reached out to Chuck and said, I'm working on this post 9/11, what hip hop had to say about it. Grimy little underground high-8 camera called Redefinitions. But Chuck helped me to get distribution for that, for that documentary film. And then show me some innovative how I was able to embed my album inside of the DVD. So in 2001, I put out Redefinitions, but I also put my album out inside of the DVD, which was kind of unheard of at that time.
Yeah.
So, just staying in contact with Chuck, talking more about like fatherhood, just brotherhood, just, global travels. Chuck would drive a lot from New York to Atlanta, from Atlanta, back and forth, because his family was there. And, just kept encouraging me to put out music. So 2002, I moved to California. 2003, Songs from the Next Level was the kind of like my coming out album here in the Bay that did very well. Kind of solidified my position of being here in the Bay Area as a hip hop artist and an educator. And then again, Chuck was like, yo, you got to get global. You got to get outside the United States now. So 2004, I went on tour the first time with the group, Bay Area super group called Black Alicious, legendary group, Gifted Gab and Chief XL. They took me to Europe my first trip in 2004. So they showed me what was possible. Without them, I probably would have still got there, but not in the same way. Because I didn't realize how big they were until I got to Europe. And I was like, well, we on tour buses and sold out arenas. This is what I want to do here. So, when I got back from that, I went back to Europe in 2005 on my own dime, got my own deal, released a record on EMI Denmark called Soul Hop the Breakthrough, which was considered like a cultural classic because I was living in Denmark of all places. I lived in Copenhagen for 2 years, got a deal, got a publishing deal, toured, like just all because I'm trying to figure out how to get global. In Copenhagen for hip hop culture was that place for me.
So let me ask this, because one of the things I do hear is a lot of folks talk about Europe. So it's like Europe seems to be this magnet. So what I'm hearing from you is even, U.S. artists, and I know definitely artists on the continent, a lot of them find success in Europe and they'll go there and, they could be not rapping in English. They could be rapping in their own language. So what is it about Europe that seems to kind of be a place where artists can go and basically eat off of their music?
Well, keep it 100. They pay well. I mean, they like, as opposed to you haggling with promoters. If you are good and you got music out, you can work your hand to be able to get compensated for the art that you create. The Europeans really like the live experience. So it's like, if you really come and rock live, then what you find is you end up creating fans forever. You know what I mean? You create this kind of insular folks are like, yo, I'm going to check so-and-so because I'm going to check Guru, RIP, because when he was here 3 years ago, he rocked it, changed my life, And then also Europeans, because I got a chance to live in Copenhagen in Denmark, and I was always blown away by how many people wanted me to come to their houses so they could show me their record collections, which is full of black music, right?
Wow.
So my perception was, oh, now I understand why they really embracing me, because this is the closest you get to it. The source of it, like hip hop, here it is. Like experience that. And I would just say that the maneuverability in Europe has helped a lot. I still think we should be able to tour Africa the same way. We should be able to tour the entire world the same way. But Europe has a way of being able, and then again, they have so many festivals and concerts and venues that are pretty much conducive for us to be able to do this. And again, if you look at Miles Davis, Miles Davis is a great example. He said the first time I felt like a man was when I was in France. You know what I'm saying? Think about Langston Hughes. You think about how many of us, I'm not going to say racism and classism don't exist in Europe, because a lot of people are taking it way too far. If you really want to see how racism works for you as a sister, go over there with your man. Go over there in a couple situation, or with your woman, or with your significant other. Then you go find out how it really goes down. You as an independent person, it's like, I'm a hip hop artist, so I'm moving as an ambassador. I'm an ambassador of this culture. And because I know what that ambassadorship means, I know how to operate, so I can move in a particular way. But my folks came to visit me over in Copenhagen. Then I was like, wait a minute, we can't catch a cab now. Oh, wow, okay, now you're acting funny style now, because I ain't by myself. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so Europe is really unique in that, but I do think it has been historically a place where Black musicians have been able to go and just really do your art for art's sake. You know what I mean? Like, really, and people, Europe was the first place I had an interview after a concert, and somebody was asking me specifically about lyrics in the song. They wasn't asking me where you headed next and when your next album, or, you know, like kind of par for the course questions you might get here. But there they was like, yo, in that song Triumph, when you said this line, what did you mean? And I'm like, okay, y'all are listening, you know. So that's just been my experience with Europe. So
okay. And so then the kind of joining up with Public Enemy, how did that happen in terms of like that kind of coming together?
Yeah, right around 2007, the 20th anniversary of Public Enemy, Yo Bum Rush the Show. Chuck made me the official opening act and MC for the entire tour. So based on our conversations, and what I found out later was based on my continual work. It wasn't like I was sitting at home waiting for Chuck D to give me a call. I'm still releasing records. I'm still teaching. I'm still trying to represent hip hop in the best way that I could. And out of that, you know, that I got that responsibility to be able to do that. It was Public Enemy and X-Clan and myself, which was really dope, because Brother J and X-Clan, 1992, before PE, gave me my first look to see what like Rockin' Live was about. So on that tour, Chuck was like James Brown, Bobby Bird, and just walk away. I'd be like, okay, everybody over here, get on up. Everybody right here, get into it. Every time James said something, Bobby was right there with him. So I was like, okay. Chuck was 28 when he started his career professionally. I was 28. Chuck got a booming voice, you know, and my voice it can be a booming voice as well. So I was noticing some similarities that we had. The way Chuck approaches the live, like Rock the Stage live, that's very similar in terms of like, we going to crush this stage, you know? Like, so because of that, he, you know, saying James Brown, Bobby Bird was planting the seeds of, what if I was in a position to continue the cultural legacy of Public Enemy, which doesn't take away from anything that they've done, but similar to how rock artists will switch out groups or members or add members and give it more longevity, that Chuck was grooming me for that. So it happened. So 2007 was that crucial moment. And really it took 5 more years before PE 2.0 actually came to life. And then I really got my assignment, which was cover songs out of the Public Enemy catalog. 2, take some of the instrumentals and write new rhymes, but with the same aggression, the same political understanding, cultural awareness. And then 3, you know, create my own music that's in that lane, in that spirit. So 2012, PE 2.0 was born, and man, 5 albums later, 2 world tours. And now, you know, with Chuck, just his solo records, we rhyme partners now. We write together, we rhyme together. And we built a brotherhood based on respect, you know. So, you know, I always say, you know, I kind of went a long way about it, but the really succinct thing is that because I had a sense of hip hop culture, a particular consciousness about the culture, a responsibility about it, and I was still going about trying to do my own things, it created an opportunity where Chuck was able to see value in me to be able to bring me in a camp that, you know, Chuck Publican, they don't need he could have called Cube, he could have called anybody, like, but, you know, Chuck being the elder statesman, always trying to help those that are underfound, as we call them, you know, gave me that opportunity. And yeah, I've just been holding on to it with dear life, trying to do my best to represent it in the highest regard, on stage, off stage, in the music, outside of the music, you know, really represent the hip hop that I grew up on. So.
And so you've also taken that into the classroom because, you know, I've talked with you before about kind of being being someone who teaches hip hop and kind of feeling some kind of way about those who don't come from the culture but are teaching the culture. And so I remember I was thinking, oh, okay, I'm not an MC. So,
but you know, you down by law. I know where you're from. I know your influences, and your photography is that you down by law. You in the culture. You couldn't take these photos in here without a hip hop aesthetic, without an understanding of hip hop. You would have missed it. You wouldn't even seen that. So
that's true. That's true. So do you feel like, you know, let me ask, how has your experience been teaching? And then I think more importantly, why teach? Why did you feel like being an educator was something that was necessary to us? Because I mean, as an MC, you're already an educator. Yeah. You know, you're already teaching people through your music. So why did you feel it was necessary to also kind of go in a classroom and kind of teach that way?
I would say a couple of reasons. One is it's just the hip hop that I grew up on. You know, what I saw was hip hop artists coming into the neighborhoods and the communities trying to be of service. The Zulu Nation was happening at that time, and although I wasn't a member of the Zulu Nation, what I was appreciating is that seeing people in the community trying to do some good. I appreciated that. And then also, as an artist, I always say that, you know, unless you're the top tier, you know, you got to have various ways in which to be able to sustain your life. And, you know, part of my job has always been to do something that I can get paid for, but also give a service, you know. And one of the things that I felt like the service was education. You don't see enough Black men like me in classrooms. You don't see enough Black men like me that's being able to meet with principals and create curricula and do scope and sequence and Common Core standards and all of those things. Still from an alternative point of view, because although I'm an educator, I'm not deeply into the whole education. There's an alternative way. There's still a hip hop lens in which I do this. So, I taught at San Francisco State. What was beautiful about that was that it was a class called Behind the Stage. So it was everything except the MC. And the goal was to put young people onto all of the jobs and careers that's in the music industry besides being the rapper on the mic. And I thought that was a really great, you know, I took my class to Fox Theater to see Stephen Marley, but they had to get there early and watch everybody that was working up to the concert. And they realized all of the jobs that, you know, so I wanted to be able to teach and provide that. And then also, I just think it's a huge responsibility for our culture that people who are active participants teach, so we don't have so much misinformation and voices that are talking about a culture that they've only, like, from the periphery have really participated in. So I think there's something unique that I can bring. So it's always been like my service, you know. And then I always say the classroom is similar to a stage. You know, you have an audience, you know, you got material that you want to be able to share. You want to impact them so they have like enduring understandings that 20 years from now they remember that. So, you know, and now, you know, I taught at Holy Names University, where I was teaching, pretty much done now with all this happening. But that particular course I was really proud of because I was able to work with Dr. Kimberly Mayfield. And she was pushing an idea of Du Bois and Rakim, who are 100 years apart. And the idea behind, like, what Du Bois was looking at the time and he was writing about it. Rakim, you know, was looking at the times and wrote about it, changed the way in which we rhyme. You know, I was able to get his book and Chuck D's book as required reading for those classes. you know, what I noticed from my students was it was something to be said about me being in the room to have the narrative and the real life experience around hip hop. So it's just my service, another way for me to service the culture when I'm not on the microphone.
Okay. Now, in terms of looking at kind of the albums, the music you released with PE 2.0. So there are two, People Get Ready, which was 2014, and Inspired 2015.
Yep, Inspired. And then there's In the Tradition.
Okay.
In the Tradition is one. And then Nation Builder came out in 2018. And then the Catalog, which is the most recent one, which is kind of like the best of. We were like, you know, imagine if we did a best of all of PE 2.0 records. And we put that one out on vinyl. That one is really special to me because, you know, I never thought that I would have a vinyl record that got KRS on it twice and Chuck D on it, Easy Mo B produced tracks and Bomb Squad tracks. It's just kind of a hip hop dream come true for me. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that in terms of KRS-One and kind of, well, of course, you know, doing collaborations with Chuck D and in terms of how that was, like, how was it to be in the room or on the mic or share the same kind of platform or the same project with folks who, you know, obviously you got there because of your skills, you know, because not only of your being a skilled MC, because I think that when you look at, like you said, Chuck D could have, you know, really reached out to anyone. But when you look at individuals like Chuck D or like KRS-One, it's more than just about your ability to kind of to flow, to rhyme. And it's kind of more of also your intellectual space that you're in and kind of how you see hip hop, how you approach hip hop, and how you kind of your commitment to your people. Because one of the things I've gotten, you know, as a fan is this idea that artists that are just doing it to get rich, or artists that say they're for their people, but they're really not. And, you know, we kind of give examples of those kind of folks. And so kind of being in that space, how has the reception been from just kind of folks around you and people that you knew kind of growing up? And then also kind of how was it in terms of being on these projects with individuals like that? Did you feel like, I don't know, the weight of that?
Oh, it's just KRS-One. This is I met KRS-One in 1998 at Cleveland State. He did a lecture. At the end of the lecture, I walked up to him. I was like, "My name's Jahi. I heard you got a concert. I noticed there's no opening act, and can I?" And before I could say, "Can I open?" he was like, "Bust right now. Start rhyming." And so I'm rhyming, and he's pulling people around. He's like, "Don't stop. Just keep rhyming." And he's pulling people, and I'm just, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just rhyming.
Yeah.
And he was like, "All right, meet me backstage. I'm gonna give you, like, you got it." That's how we met. And then from that, you know, after that show, he snatched me backstage and was like, "That's how you open a concert." And that's how we built and it's really apprenticeship. You know, I really have to, I really, if I had to like narrow it down, I'm going through, and I'm going to say I'm always going to be going through it because I'm a student of the culture, is that I'm going through an apprenticeship. And I think what KRS-One and what Chuck may have seen in me really is that, I knew their music. I have rocked with KRS maybe 25 times since 1998. I mean, old concerts. And he'd be like, "Ja, come rock with me." No set list, no rehearsal. And I'm right there with him because his music meant something to me. Same thing with Enemy, you know? So I feel like, and it's not just me, there's a lot of people. I think people like KRS-One and Chuck and others have been looking for people who are going to carry the torch of the culture and have some responsibility, some integrity, some character. And if you're an MC, you're going to spit something, you're going to spit that raw. You're going to have something to say that's really meaningful and really work on your skills. And, you know, I'm a student of the culture. And I think because I've been able to do that, that's how I've been able to be in this apprenticeship situation. KRS being on the album twice is crazy because I sent him 2 tracks. The producer, Divided Souls, was like, "Man, I hear KRS on here." And I was like, That might be possible. He was like, that would just make my whole life. And I was saying to myself, I'm about to try to make this dude's life for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I sent KRS 2 tracks, one for Black Thesis and one for Crowd Rockers. And, you know, it's time to turn the record in. And I haven't heard from him. And it's like, I'm the apprentice. I'm not about to nudge him. You know, I'm not going to be, yo, where's my record? Wake up the following morning, both records. He didn't do one. He did both of them. So I'm just, again, for me, it just took on another level of responsibility. Like, okay, KRS hopped on 2 of your records. That means he's telling you something. And if I had to, that's what he's telling you. He's telling you, keep the torch lit, represent this culture, you know. Being in the same room with Chuck in the studio is one of those moments where you got to play it real cool. But inside, I'm still a fan. I'm a fan first. I'm a fan of his culture. So when I get home, then I'll be like, I can't believe that I was just. So it never gets lost on me. You know, some people are like, oh, it's cool. Like, nah, I'm a kid when it comes to this. I'm always gonna be excited. But I like the challenge. I like the creative challenge to can my pen. You know, I'm never going to get in the atmosphere of where Chuck and KRS is. But if I'm somewhere in the field, in the rain, I'm thankful for that, you know. So, yeah, it's just been a exciting, humbling experience more than anything.
And so, okay, so kind of, because one of the things I wanted that, while I think we're looking at Chuck D and looking at KRS-One, what they've meant for hip hop is just kind of, you know, undisputed, unchallenged. So in terms of looking at taking the torch and kind of going further, I know, you know, one of those connections again that we have is on the continent, specifically in Ghana, and you kind of connecting with artists. So then where do you see yourself in terms of taking that torch as far as hip hop in Africa, in terms of kind of working with artists on the continent, incorporating African music, you know, whatever that means to you in terms of kind of, because that's one of the things that I feel like Chuck, I know he was on one of Bliss Ambassador's projects. He did like some vocals.
That's right.
But neither him nor KRS-One kind of really kind of went there. And perhaps at that time, you know, it was kind of tough and, you know, social media, you weren't really able to see what's happening on the ground. Now, you know, it's much easier, I feel like, to connect with folks on the continent than it was, say, in the 90s in terms of what's happening. So do you feel like that's something that, you know, a direction you want to go? And if so, kind of what does that mean in terms of connecting with the continent and your music?
Oh man, that's a great question. You know, Chuck set the standard for, he did PanAfricanism in Ghana, 92, 93. So the groundwork had been laid, the hip hop in particular, because my first trip to Ghana was in September, and when people caught wind of the camp that I was in, there was some people was telling me stories about how, you know, PE changed their lives and that concert, and they were in there, and it was just like, wow. I just, again, humble moment, because it's like, man, I just talked to Chuck yesterday, but I'm talking to these people like, and I'm talking to like my rhyme comrades in Africa, and they're like, yo, Wu-Tang, KRS-One, Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian mattered. And I'm like, wow, you know, that just was mind blowing to me. So Africa, man, it's just like, again, I'm trying to catch up to you, because I just one trip. I'm trying to catch up. The one thing that has been on my mind since my trip, and I did it a little bit on my new album, For Future, the song Madasi. I dropped a couple tree lines in there, because what I realize now is that the best thing that I can do for Africa as it relates to hip hop is to reclaim language. It's to reclaim language. Now I understand why our ancestors, when they got them here, they were like, you got to stop that talking. They to get rid of our language and our drums, because to me, the idea of Sankofa now is language for me. because I saw somebody rhyming in tree and ga and in English. So, and he like, okay, you go. I'm like, man, I ain't going, man. You just rhymed in 3 languages, man.
Yeah.
So for me, that's power. I understand more the power of being able to speak in an indigenous African tongue and what power comes with that. So as an artist now, you know, and I've always been a Pan-Africanist. I've always been a Garveyite, you know, but now that I've been able to get to the continent and now establish some friendships in that way, and now understanding what Senegal has to offer and what Nigeria and what Ethiopia and Kenya and this whole continent has to offer. For me now, it's just really 3 things. 1, how often can I get back to the continent and interface with more artists and humble myself, because what I realize is how much I don't know. Like, because there is this sense sometimes, and people were telling me, you know, American artists come and they got this, and yeah, hip hop started in New York, but that ain't complete. That ain't complete. That's not the ground zero is Africa. And when I was in Africa, so when I was in Ghana, I did 5 radio shows. I did a lecture and a performance. One of the first things I had to fight through was, I am not a foreigner. I'm your son, return home. I'm your brother, return home. You got to get that out the way, like, number 1. Number 2, I'm a Pan-Africanist. So if it's a Nigerian and a Ghanaian and an Ethiopian in the room, I connect to all of y'all. Y'all are all my family. You know what I mean? Number 3, the hip hop that you all are being fed is not fully representing the whole house of hip hop. Yeah. You still need these 1 or 2 rooms as well too. And I saw that and I was like, oh, that kind of informed some of the work. And then the bigger thing was, it was like stuff that I just didn't know. People were rhyming about things that I had no reference point for. I didn't know the language, but what I could pick up on was cadence and tone and delivery and energy. And because of that, there's a universal language in hip hop that we all have. And that was just wonderful to feel. Yeah. But for now, I feel like Africa is like hip hop in the early 90s. I feel like it has that much potential. I feel like there's so much exploration that can happen. And I also think that it's important for them, and I'm not trying to distinguish myself so much from anybody else, but I am going to say that the lane of hip hop that I'm in, we need more of that to go to the continent so people can have, oh wow, okay, this exists too. Because I met a lot of MCs that was socially conscious, socially aware, teaching, doing a lot of variety of things, but they were also talking about how their families were like, yo, you got to get a real job. This is not provide real money. And you know, artists don't get their royalties in Ghana, for example, I was finding out about. So some of the infrastructure stuff around music business, so people can be empowered. But for me now, I mean, my fire was already lit before I went to Africa, but now that I've been to Africa, my whole thing now is, how many artists can I connect with and build long-lasting relationships and partnerships with, and not let it be about the monetary, let it be about the cultural preservation and representation of who we are. So again, if hip hop is a house with many rooms, that you know what's in all the rooms, and I'm just not in the 2 Chainz room. That's just not gonna find me there. No diss to 2 Chainz. If you in the 2 Chainz, cool, do your thing. I'm just in a different room, and we can't say that the 2 Chainz room, I'm using him as an example, we can't say that that's the whole house. Yeah. And what they represent is the entire house. And if you don't kind of follow those rules, then you don't have a place in the house. I want to be able to continue to show Africa that you have a place, and then just become a sponge. And, you know, Forward Future, the album that I have out right now, started out one way, but when I got back from Ghana, I was like, these beats got to speed up. Everything got to speed up. I need to hear some undertones of that drum and that djembe. Like, I need in there, because it just touched my heart in an incredible way. So I love Ghana, but I really am on a mission to be able to try to travel to as many places as I can. And really try to build. So.
Well, I definitely, Ghana is a very interesting place in terms of the music, in terms of kind of where I think with Senegal, it's, much more political and like much more of the content is just straight up political. And, I always say if you, with Senegal being predominantly Muslim, once you cut out drinking and sex and all these things, you got to talk about something with substance. That's right. And so in Senegal, I think you've, definitely got that. And I think with Ghana, still that, like you said, that the influence of kind of commercialized rap, trap music, which, when I first started hearing MCs from the continent doing trap music and mumble rap, I was like, okay, like it's, I don't want to be in that situation where I'm like, oh, well, that's, that's not real music. Let them have that over there.
Right.
But then, looking for the folks that are really kind of like the hip hop, the hardcore hip hop heads who are also conscious. And it was a struggle finding a lot of that in Ghana. Of course, me, being originally from Tanzania, there's definitely those communities there in East Africa, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. But I'm going to definitely put a plug in to go to East Africa for you to
let's go.
Yeah, because
Tanzania is on the radar. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I want to lift up though in your book though, that there's something that when you were breaking down France Fanon and you were talking about I think the third one was protest. It was protest. Combat.
Mm-hmm.
And combat was where you would put your life on the line for these rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
Africa is really the center of that right now because I can't tell you how many people I've seen who, they said something against the government, now they on the run, or they in exile, or their music has been banned because they've had some critical things to say about what's going on. That really touched me because it's like, I know what protest music is.
Yeah.
I know how to get people, right? But combat music is something that I saw in Africa that there was a lot of conversation around. I'm going to say this because it's got to be said.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain privilege we have here. It's like, well, if I say something against 45 today, okay, get in line. A whole lot of people to say.
Yeah.
Right? But over there, it's like, wow, if you say something against a particular regime or the way things are going, you actually are really putting your life on the line, and you still went to the studio.
Yeah.
You still recorded. That idea of combat music was powerful, and I think that is something that I want to learn more about in Africa because I think there's a certain level of courage that is happening to rap, just to straight up rap, that here we don't have those. You know what it's like? YG did the F, song, and I might have jammed him up a couple times. Promoters might have played, but he still was able to function and do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
To hear, I don't want to mispronounce or misquote names, but I've just been keeping up with like, wow, these brothers in Algeria said this, and now this is okay. This sister said this, and now this is happening. So very powerful.
It's definitely, in looking at Pan-Africanism, I feel like hip hop is such a natural tool for Pan-Africanism because it already encompasses all of Black culture here on the continent. So we already are a part of it. And so hip hop is like this vehicle for kind of like bringing individuals together. It just seems like such a natural fit. And also because hip hop is one of those genres where the MC is supposed to speak their truth. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about, your melody or how much you can harmonize or it's about what you're speaking about. You speaking your truth, you speaking your reality and speaking truth to power. And so because of that, all of those things, I just feel like Pan-Africanism and hip hop are just, it's a great tool for bringing folks together. And I feel like, like you were saying in terms of the potential, I think the potential for hip hop as a tool for Pan-African mobilization is it's really been underestimated. But yeah, no, I see folks like, like yourself, and then, people like Blitz, who are kind of like on both the diaspora as well as, Ghana, and folks like him who are kind of creating those bridges, because you've got, him, here he's connected with you, he's connected with Chuck, he's with Ava DuVernay, but he's still very much rooted in Ghana. And so it's
like a Ghanaian.
Yeah, exactly. So you got like all of these things that are, that are possible, I think, in hip hop culture really kind of brings that out.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of work to continue to do, because what I think in my lecture when I was in Ghana, I had to stop, because what I realized is that, yeah, I'm a Pan-African, but how that shows up on the African continent amongst African people, there's a complexity to that I have to learn more about, you know, and the biggest thing I learned in Africa is how much I don't know. And that was a beautiful thing, because it was like, okay. Because some people were kind of like coming at me like, yo, when you privileged, you can get on a plane tomorrow and move, and I was like, well, we all got some level of privilege. You know what I'm saying? We all, privilege is relative. You might think that you don't have privilege. The next person say, man, you got more access than I have, But I think the inner work on Africa is continuing to figure out how that inner unity happens. So when people come and they're coming to embrace a unity that is there for them, and that is a place for them to be able to help it to grow this way, as opposed to feel like you fighting to get in, and then, the disunity, you know what I mean? So, but again, I'm the last, you should be doing more talking about Africa, because I'm only one trip in, but many more to come, and a lot of work to do on the African continent. I would love to be able to end my career and life on the continent.
Well, no, I mean, I think, well, one, in terms of the podcast, we do get, a lot of folks that listen from the States, but we do also get quite a few folks from the continent. So I definitely feel like people wanting to connect and being able to say, okay, here's an MC that is, is about it, is Pan-Africanist, kind of really for the culture. And so kind of also a lot of times folks don't get to hear that, so they get to hear, kind of the names that tend to ring out the loudest. So you do have, people know about Chuck D, they know about, but they also don't really kind of know the fullness of what's happening in the States, what MCs are doing. And so I think, unless folks come here, it's hard to find out, just like here, it's like in the States, it's hard to find out, okay, who are the MCs that are really about it in South Africa? It's hard to know unless that person kind of, so I think, being able to kind of talk to you and on a platform like this allows folks who may not kind of know all of this. There's, somebody sitting at home in Lagos or in Nairobi can also then, okay, well, let me, reach out or, just kind of connect and understand kind of like what's happening and get a little bit more.
Nah, I think you're doing it. I think your podcast and your book is a great service to the culture, because it creates an opportunity for us to connect. There's so many things that's created for us to divide and never be connected. But I think these platforms, if you, no matter where you are in the world right now, just know that you got a brother that's here. I'm based in the United States, but I'm an African. You know what I'm saying? That there's an African-centered perspective that I try to operate on, and what I bring to hip hop culture. And I still believe that our culture is one of the most powerful cultures to bring people together. And then once we are brought together, thing, because I think hip hop can bring us together, yes. But after we get together, the work that we could do, the things that we could produce, the things that we could create, the things that we could sustain, that could be authentically ours, is the potential is really great. So
yeah. All right. Well, I definitely want to thank you. And so I'm, gonna have all the links to all your stuff and your social media, and so folks can get the music. I think that's important for folks to be able to kind of to connect.
That's right. New album For a Future is out right now. New video, Mindfulness just dropped. Which if people, I've been getting people like, I really love this, but I didn't expect it because it's like I did a song about meditation and mindfulness because. Especially in these days and times, having your mindfulness will help you survive Rona, as the people in the hood are calling it.
And I'm definitely in the video. It was shot in California, right? I see the palm trees and which is
It's actually, I'm actually an extra in the video. The main characters are fire, water, air, and earth.
I know,
And what I'm really trying to promote through mindfulness is for people to find a place in nature where they can recenter and connect. So the reason why we shot that video, I'm in Pacifica. The second part of the video takes place in Pacifica in California, which is right by the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful place where I go to center. And then, nighttime. Nighttime is the right time for me to kick around. That's where I normally get it done. So,
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
Self-care, taking care of self. Get all the bag you want, but wealth is your real health. Silence outside, opinions about you. And do the inner work, cause in the truth, that's the real you. The nighttime is the right time for me to kick a rhyme. 20 years later, still reaching my prime without the Amazon or the cameras on. Don't wanna be